Wuthering Waves releases globally in only a few weeks from the time I'm recording this video. With the announcement of the release date, Kuro Games also announced the pre-registration goals. These are a staple among every mobile game's release, offering to the community a few extra goodies to entice people for the release. Typically, the big reward for pre-registration is earning some free gacha wishes for everyone, usually for the standard banner. WuWa will have this as well, and what is the goal? Well, 30 million pre-registrations, with the current amount totaling 26 million at the time I'm writing this script. Ever since the announcement, I had seen people surprised at the large span of registrations from the goal. Then they would cheer with excitement for every few million gained as we near the end. While I love seeing the community excited for the game's release, it occurs to me that people don't realize the truth of these numbers and how this goal was always going to be reached. Now, don't get me wrong, a game's hype and the number of actual pre-registrations do affect the overall number of registrations depicted on a game's launch page. Kuro Games' other official gacha, Punishing Gray Ravens, historically had very poor marketing. Thus, the hype for it was extremely poor. This resulted in an announced 100,000 pre-registrations, and later that number would shoot up to a whole 500,000. Similarly, Tower Fantasy released arguably at the height of Genshin Impact's popularity, and thus they only managed to hit 4 million despite them having an amount of hype at the release. Wuthering Waves has certainly had no small amount of hype, between it offering a gameplay loop that, while similar to Genshin Impact's, provides for a player base that felt neglected in Genshin's current offerings, while also gathering increased support due to the developers behind the game clearly wishing to immediately address player feedback in a timely manner, even should that require them to rewrite most of the game's story. When the pre-registrations were initially announced, they had 15 million total, which is no small number. So why set the goal to 20 or even 30 million? When it comes down to WuWa's biggest competitors, both Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail had over 10 million pre-registrations. Thus, announcing the total starting at 16 million was quite the flex Kuro made towards Hoyoverse, clearly putting themselves on the same pedestal as those flagship games. But Hoyo also announced Zenless Zone Zero exceeded 30 million pre-registrations. ZZZ did. The TV simulator. My guess is that Kuro decided to redirect their announcement to put the goal to match Hoyo's newest gacha. But how was Kuro able to make up for being almost half the total? Well, remember what I said about the actual numbers being make-believe? See, how do we as the community know how many pre-registrations a game gets? Well, the developers tell us how many. That's how. Add in the fact that many players will make alternate accounts to register multiple times, as many times as necessary to also hit the goal, and in the end, the number doesn't even matter. Number of duplicate and unique registrations will flood in, and Kuro will smudge the numbers here and there to make the goal reachable. No matter how stark the difference, companies have pretty much always done this for their games, because bigger numbers means the better sell to investors. The only reason it's so apparent is because, well, Genshin got a COVID buff back in release. See, prior to Genshin, 500,000, a few million, was pretty normal for a gacha game. They were very niche, and in a lot of ways, looked down upon by the general gaming community, and in a lot of ways still are. Genshin suddenly put gacha gaming in the mainstream. Now suddenly, games need tens of millions of players in order to be considered at the same tier as Genshin and HSR. If they fail to reach those numbers, they're looked at as failures. So in summation, can Kuro achieve their 30 million pre-registrations regardless of how improbable getting that many people to click a button is? I mean, look at you getting this far into a video and you haven't subscribed yet. WuWa will definitely cross 30 million mark, and I wouldn't be too surprised if the upcoming Azure Premilia starts their campaign at 30 to 40 million when they eventually announce their pre-registration totals. But hopefully, now you know why these companies choose these insanely high targets, yet always seem to hit them in the last few days. And hey, if you like that, check out this video where I cover everything you need to know about Azure Premilia.